Hi, it's Chris again and welcome to another of our Epix systems walkthroughs. This particular one is all to do with adding and editing sales codes within the system, specifically for creating new ones, editing prices and also making them visible or not visible to operatives on the mobile device. Now, in order to do anything with sales codes, you'll generally need the relevant access within the system. This is often a user permission, and if you're in any doubt, it's usually housed within the setup menu and often is captioned as an SORs and prices menu option. It could also be called sales codes or job lines or SOR codes or anything like that, but ultimately it's going to be found usually under a setup menu. If you don't have access to that, then you'll need to arrange that with your line manager potentially, and then also get in touch with us to add that into your user account. So let's get started. We'll begin by showing you how to add a new sales code from scratch, and this will be going onto an existing SOR list or a sales code list within the system. Now, the code could be a NatFed schedule of rates code, or equally it could just simply be a manual day rate code that you want to add to a customer's sales code list. So for the purposes of this example, I'm just going to simply use a test code, and that's going to be added onto an existing SOR list. So back up on the setup menu, if we choose SORs and prices, the first thing I would always do before adding any new sales code is just double check to make sure that someone hasn't already done it. And to do that, I would search for the code or the description, depending on what I know about it. So the code I'm about to add is going to be an Epix code. It's simply going to be called Epix sales code. So if I put in the code containing the word Epix and then hit search, as expected, there are no results. So this is good. I can go ahead and add the new code. I can do that by clicking here, or from the original setup screen, I can click on new entry, and both those will take you to the same place, which is here. Now, for the majority of systems, you'll only need to fill in a few of these fields. Not all of them are relevant and certainly not needed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the common setup for a sales code for most applications that you'll ever need. However, if you do need any of the other bits, then do get in touch with us and one of the support team will be able to help you with that. So the first thing you need to fill in is the mandatory field indicated by the blue dot there for the SOR list, and this is the list that we identified for the customer earlier, which was the codes without bonus. So I'm going to choose the correct list. The reference field, this is the sales code that we want to add. So the code I want to use is Epix, and as we can see, the values I've entered is unique, so that's good. It means we can use that code. The next mandatory field down is the SOR field, and that's the SOR description or the sales code description. So I want to call this one the Epix systems test code. And the next field down is the charge field, and I want this to be the £100, and that's the base price for this code. Now, if this was a NatFed code, this would be the base rate for that particular code. So whatever it says on the list as the base rate, that will be what you put here. If you pay your operatives bonus on sales codes or SORs, then that's the value here. So if you paid for every time an operative delivered the Epix code, you paid them £5, then you would put £5 here. If you're not using bonus or it's not relevant to you, then you just simply leave this blank. The trade, which has got a live search, so you could start to search for a specific trade, for example. This is the default trade for that code. Now, this one is a generic one, so I'm just going to simply put it under all trades. A UOM, unit of measure, I'm going to choose item for that, but this of course could be square meters, it could be kilograms, it could be whatever unit of measure you need for the code that you're adding. The tick box for allow manual, what this does is when ticked, it allows you, when you're adding the sales code to a job, it allows you to choose the rate that you want to apply to the code at this point. So if you're setting up a code that could change on a job by job basis and the value is not fixed, then I would tick that and it allows you to edit it every time you add it. If you leave it unticked, it will always put in the price of the code on that price list and it doesn't then let you change it. The options below here for the visibility and how the SOR behaves, this affects where it's seen. And the two options that you really need to be concerned with are the don't show and show results on PDA. So rather obviously this one means that you get to see the code on the PDA app. So if you want your mobile engineers to see this code as a code that they can add to a job as a variation, say, then you would tick that option on there. The internal tick box, if that's ticked, that means that the code is flagged as almost private and doesn't get sent out to the client on any client-facing documentation. So items such as job sheets, visit prints, invoices, they will not show this sales code if that is ticked. So particularly useful if you're using this code for engineers or operatives to write a free type description, say, of the work they did on site. So for this one, I'm going to leave that unticked because I do want this one to show on the client document. ETTC stands for estimated time to complete. So if you want to associate some time to this code as a number of minutes that it will take an operative to complete the task, then you can do that. So an hour would simply be 60 minutes. Nominal code, if you're exporting your transactions from this system out to a financial accounting system and you're doing it by job line, then you may wish to associate this particular job line to a certain nominal code. VAT code, there's obviously different VAT rates set, but the standard obviously being the 20%. You can choose that at this stage. I'm going to leave the rest of these. If you've got any questions about those, if you feel you need them or your system's set up to use those, then we can discuss those on a support call with us. But for now, we'll move on to the next section on the right hand side of the page. So the first table at the top here on the right hand side is the prices table. Now this is the list of price lists that relate to this SOR list. So the example you're looking at now, the SOR list is codes without bonus, and there are 3 price lists hanging off this, and they're listed here. Now price lists can be customer specific or contract or work type specific or a combination of the two. So if you want this code that you're adding now to appear on any of these price lists, you have to put a value in the price column. If you ignore that and don't put anything here, when you come to try and use this code that you're adding on a job, you'll find that you can't find it because it's not got a price. So the price can be the same as the base rate, or equally it can be a value greater or less than, depending on what price you've agreed for this particular code on this price list. So I'm going to put this in at £100 for these two and £120 for this price list here. Now the column for SC base, this is the subcontractor base rate. So if you're subcontracting your work and you're going to subcontract this particular code out to another company, this is the base rate that is relevant to this code. And when you set up subcontractors within the system, you can specify a percentage bonus that you want to pay them. So the percentage bonus will be taken from whatever you put in here. So for the purposes of what we're doing now, I'm going to put all these at the same base rate as the SOR code. But there'll be a separate video on how to set up subcontractors, and that'll refer to this if you're in any doubt. And finally on this screen, the trades table. This is relating to which trade types you want to receive this sales code on the mobile device, hence the on PDA tick box. So if you're not giving out sales codes or SOR codes to operatives on the mobile, then just ignore this and you don't have to tick it. But if you did want the electricians to get this code, then you would simply tick the electrician's trade. I'm going to leave it blank for now, and I'm going to press continue. Now that has all been successful. If it wasn't successful, you'd have got a red exclamation mark next to the field or fields that you got wrong. So what we can do now is we can go back and search for the code we've just added, and there we are. And and then we can click edit, or view rather, to go in and make changes. Any changes you make, you would simply hit continue again, and that'll save the record. So to see the sales codes in action, if we find a job in the system, I shall use this one as my example, and then we go to add or edit sales lines. So I'm going to add a new sales line by clicking here, and then I search for my new code. I can see now that this particular one, this customer Quality Homes, is using the price list where we charged this one out at £120. So if we click on there, this code is now added in, and I would just say that I delivered one of those and add, and then I press continue, and that now has a sales code within this job. Now to edit the sales code that we've just put in, same process applies. We simply hit setup and go back into the screen for SORs and prices, and we search for the code that we're looking for, and then in the list of results we hit view for the one that we're interested in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit the price just to show you how that reflects on the job sheet. So I'm going to change the price here now to £80 and press continue. Now back on the job sheet, if I go back to our sales lines and click to edit, and then I choose the Epix sales code again, we can now see the new rate of £80 has been reflected, because this is the contracts and the price list that I've just edited in the other screen. So again, I would provide my delivered quantity and then save those changes to the job. Finally, some common questions or common mistakes that are made with sales codes. The first one is, why can't I see the sales code on the job? When I'm trying to add it, I can't find it, it's not there. Well, the reason for that I have already mentioned previously in the video, and the reason for that is usually because you've not put it on a price list. So if I take out the price for this particular price list here now, and then I go back into my job sheet and try and find it by clicking edit and repeating what we've just done, if I start typing the word Epix again, as you can see, it's not there. And the reason it's not there is because I've removed the price, so it doesn't feature on this price list anymore. So to get it back, we simply go into the SOR setup, and then add the price back in, then back on the job sheet. All being well, we need to go back in to re-edit the sales line. Click on here. There we go. The sales code's back again. So always check that you have a price for the contract and price list that you're expecting it on. Another frequently asked question that we get is, why can't I see the sales code I've just added on the PDA? And the reason for that is, again, to do with the thing that we mentioned when we were setting this up. It's the show on results on PDA, but also it's the trade type of the operative and the job that they're getting as well. So if your electrician is complaining they can't see this particular code, then in this example it's because they aren't ticked to receive that one. So make sure that the people that are supposed to see the code are ticked, and that we've told it to show them on the PDA over here. And once you've done your changes, hit continue to save that, and then the operative will need to redial, connect back to base on their app in order to see that. Well, that's all for this walkthrough. Thanks for watching. If you've got any questions at all, then do get in touch, and we'll see you on the next one.